Welcome to True and Unpolished. Through this podcast, our intention is to uplift, amuse, and inspire you to create more of a life you'll love. Let's get authentic, everybody. Okay. We have something new and different for you today. And Mary has no idea what it is. And truthfully, I have no idea what it is.
Should I be nervous, Lydia?
I mean, I'm nervous, so I feel like, yeah.
Okay.
Be nervous with me, that'd be great. So, well, I mean, I did give you a little bit of a clue. I did give you, a little bit of a basis.
Well, she told me she'd been looking through the obituaries.
Exactly.
Obituaries.
I had been looking through the obituaries. And what I wanted us to do was find some examples from other people, from the lives that other people lived, of true and unpolished. Like, what is that, and what does it look like manifest in other people's lives?
Well, I love it. I mean, a little morbid, but
do you feel like it is?
Well, I really don't. I think that it could certainly be perceived that way, but I also think, life and death are all part of the human experience. And so practicing a celebration of people we don't even know
is
very life-giving.
And being willing to kind of look at, because I don't think it's possible, and maybe it is for you or for other people, but it's not possible for me to, read an obituary and not contemplate my own mortality.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't know how much we contemplate it, but we certainly are fearful of it very often. And it's certainly something that comes up for all of us periodically, if not frequently.
Yeah. And as I was reading these, I was thinking about, my own life and my own obituary, and what that might look like, and what would I want it to look like. And I have to say, okay, so I said we're going to look at these for examples of true and unpolished. And I think that the very definition of obituary is polished.
Right.
Like, it's almost like a squeaky clean version of our lives. It's certainly
right. It's you're looking at the best of your life. I mean, and summarizing it in a very short paragraph or so.
Sure. And I think that, only love is real. So the good stuff actually is all that remains. So in that sense, it is true to life.
Did you find any unpolished?
Yes.
Of course you did.
It took a bit. It took a minute, guys. But I did find some unpolished. I'm going to share a couple unpolished with you. And Mayor, let's see what you think about these. William Freddie McCullough, the man, the myth, the legend. Men wanted to be him, and women wanted to be with him. William Freddie McCullough died on September 11th, 2013. Freddie loved deep fried Southern food smothered in cane syrup, fishing at Santee Cooper Lake, Little Debbie cakes, 2.5 Men, beautiful women, Reese's cups, and Jim Beam. Not necessarily in that order. He hated vegetables and hypocrites, not necessarily in that order.
Freddie sounds like a very colorful, interesting person.
He sounds like a good time.
Or just, it is what it is kind of person.
Right. Like, take me or leave me, right? Okay, so here is Harry Weathersby's stamps. Harry took fashion cues from no one. His signature everyday look was a plain pocketed t-shirt designed by the fashion house Fruit of the Loom. His black label elastic waist shorts worn above the navel and sold exclusively at the Sam's on Highway 49, and a pair of old school Wallabies. Who can even remember where he got those? That were always paired with grass-stained MSU baseball cap. And that came from the Daily Mail.
What are Wallabies?
In the UK.
Shoes?
Yeah. So that was actually from the UK. Like, Harry lived in the UK. Wallabies is a thing, I guess. in the UK. Everybody look that up.
I wonder if he wrote that obituary himself.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I look at these and I'm like, and you can kind of tell, I think the ones like I think these were written by, you know, the
Their
actual
loved
people.
ones. Oh
No,
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 you think he wrote it himself?
yeah, because you're gonna hear some from loved ones and the tone is different. You know, the tone is different. I mean, I don't know. It's all speculation.
That was Harry.
Yeah, that was Harry.
Well, Harry sounds pretty unpolished and is
Yes. Okay. Um,
can't wait.
here is Michael Flathead Blanchard. What's funny about all these unpolished ones is that they have these nicknames in quotes. So this is
Okay.
Flathead Blanchard. Weary of reading obituaries noting someone's courageous battle with death, Mike wanted it known that he died as a result of being stubborn, refusing to follow doctor's orders, and raising hell for more than 6 decades. He enjoyed booze, guns, cars, and younger women until the day he died.
Is that's it?
Yeah, that's it. That's the obituary. And I love it because you know some of them are just like the names of the people and the people they left behind, and I'm always like, okay, but tell me something, like tell me something about who they were as I was culling through these. And here it's like he told you nothing about who he left behind, just the funny stuff he wanted you to know. Okay, I'll do
Well,
one more of these. And this one is not like super funny. So let's see. So this is Jane Catherine Lauter. I was given the gift of life, and now I have to give it back. This is hard, but I was a lucky woman who led a lucky existence, and for this, I am grateful. I first got sick in January 2010. When the cancer recurred last year and was terminal, I decided to be joyful about having had a full life rather than sad about having to die. Amazingly, this outlook worked for me. Well, you know, most of the time. Meditation and the study of Buddhist philosophy also helped me accept what I cannot change. At any rate, I am at peace. And on that upbeat note, I take my mortal leave of this rollicking, revolving world, this sun, that moon, that walk around Green Lake, that stroll through Pike Place Market, the memory of a child's hand in mine.
I wonder who the child was.
I know. Like this is a good writing exercise where you would then go on to like create a character based on these. There's going to be so many create mores, I think, out of, you know, the lesson of these people's obituary. Like I don't want to say that we know the fullness of their life, but I think that we get a, you know, we get a piece of it. And so here is one. Adame Russell Sills. Ada May had a rich but strict childhood. Ada graduated from Messick High School in 1950 and attended Memphis State University. Ada married high school friend Carl Hadaway on January 31st, 1953. A child was born named Mary Denise. The marriage decayed and the couple divorced in 1954. Ada's marriage to Carl was a 3-ring circus: engagement ring, wedding ring, and suffer ring. Ida met and married Albert Sills in 1960. Ida said, I never knew what real happiness was until I got remarried. Then it was too late.
Oh, well, thank God for Albert.
I know. A 3-ring circus. That's so
Suffering.
I know.
What I wonder what happened, why it was too late. How old would she have been in 1960?
Well, did it say when she was born? It didn't say when she was born. It said she graduated high school in 1950. Oh, she met Albert Sills in 1960. So 7 years.
7 years of suffering.
Yeah.
Was too late.
No. Yeah, right. Exactly. She had already gone through the suffering, the 3-ring circus, I guess.
Well, I don't know. I think it's never too late.
No, exactly. Says my mom, who got married at 73.
She's a newlywed.
Yes, she's a newlywed. Yeah.
I guess these are true versions coming up next.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. But I'll tell you that, like, so when I thought about Freddie McCullough, he was the first one that I did.
Yeah.
And he's the one that, says he liked little Debbie cakes and Southern food smothered in cane syrup and Jim Beam and Reese's cups and beautiful,
Fried Southern food.
yeah, beautiful women. And I have to think that he probably had a tough road. I mean, to put Jim Beam in your obituary, you got to love you some Jim Beam.
Right.
I mean, it must have been a pretty significant part of his life. And in my experience, if it is, then you're self-medicating. So it really is unpolished. Like that was, here's me.
So I wonder why we do that, why we polish them up so much and present such a maybe not skewed version, because like you said, love is the only thing that's real. Everything else is an illusion.
Yeah.
So I wonder though what that is about. Is that ego? Is that love? Is it some combination of those two things?
Yeah, I think it's a combination, right? Well, when you look at like obituary, when you hear the word obituary, Mary, you hear Mary's obituary. Like what comes to your mind? Like what does that mean?
Well, I am typically mother, sister, friend.
Yeah,
She served her community and is survived by. I mean, to me, that's a typical obituary. And I
it is.
guess I haven't thought too much about it.
Yeah, right. And so I think that the reason why polish them up is because of the meaning that we give to them. And I think that the meaning that we give to them is this is the synopsis of my life, which is ridiculous because how could you ever give a synopsis of a life? And that's why I love this next one.
Okay, let's hear
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. This one not so funny, but amazing, I think. The smartest man in the world has died. Philip Adair Van Thullner was born in Texas on a sweltering August day in 1931 and died on a beautiful fall day in November 2016. The birth and death of this great man, however, is not nearly as relevant as all the days and nights that he
Mm,
lived to the fullest between those two dates. His parents knew they had a perfect child, which is why they only had one. Phil was intellectually gifted and had tremendous natural athletic ability. He was born in Texas, but due to his father's occupation with the National Weather Service, Phil lived and went to school in Wisconsin, Boston, Salt Lake City, Berlin, Germany, and Kansas City. He excelled at hockey and was asked to join the Olympic team when he was in high school in Boston, but his parents insisted his studies come first, so he declined and continued to earn straight A's through college. He was such an excellent baseball player in college, he received offers from 3 Major League Baseball teams to join their pitching roster. Once again, he and his parents discussed the offer and concluded that while a few years in the MLB would indeed be exciting, a career in the medical profession would provide lifelong stability and many opportunities. He attended Rockhurst College, where he met the love of his life, Susan Marie Turgeon. She proclaimed the day she met him that she was going to marry him, and when that woman sets her mind to something, nothing gets in her way. Bill was a member of the choir and Alpha Sigma Nu at Rockhurst. Upon graduation, he attended medical school at St. Louis University, where all the men wanted to be like him and all the women knew to stay away from him. Sue
Uh-oh.
had, Sue had her hooks in and wasn't letting go. After graduating at the top of his class and narrowly escaping the wrath of his roommate for his annoying habit of loudly chewing on his favorite candy, lemon drops, Phil and Sue were married in September 1956 in Kansas City, Missouri. The first of 8 children arrived 9 months later, and our dad kept our mom in maternity wear for 10 years. When she told him she wanted 10 children, he didn't bat an eye and truly looked forward to making that wish come true for her. However, after the 8th baby arrived as a full blown toddler, Sue declared 8 is enough. Two girls were I know. Two girls were born in Portland, Oregon. Three boys came next in Kansas City. Then a third daughter arrived at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida, where Phil was a captain in the Air Force before they returned to Roland Park, Kansas, and had their fourth girl and fourth boy, making it a full house. They raised their 8 kids in a ranch house up the street from Bishop Mage High School near St. Agnes Grade School, where all 8 kids attended, excelled. Some were expelled, but all graduated, some with honors, like their dad. Phil truly enjoyed watching his children play sports, sing in concerts, perform in plays and musical, and only bailed one out of jail. He was a patient man. One of our classmates once said, "You must be rich. Your dad's a doctor." Upon hearing this, Phil laughed and said, "I have 8 children. I'll never be financially rich, but I'm blessed beyond riches in many other ways that no amount of money can buy." Naturally, after taking his 8 imperfect kids on vacation every summer, he and Sue always took another vacation, just the
Mm.
two of them, to replenish their sanity. Phil was a respected pathologist at St. Luke's Menorah and Providence Medical Centers. He was a deputy coroner. He used to brag, or perhaps threaten, that he could kill someone and nobody would ever know. After suffering a major stroke 5 years ago, a new Phil emerged. The Phil we grew up with was patient, genteel, fastidious in his appearance, and never said a curse word or spoke badly of anyone. After his stroke, a bolder, more outspoken Phil emerged, and he was not afraid to speak his mind, often quite colorfully. He frequently called his sons Dick, which some attributed to the stroke, while others believe it was a subconscious way of him calling his sons out on all the cars of his that they wrecked, and all the tools and all the tools of his that they borrowed and never returned. Left behind to carry Phil's legacy, his beloved wife of 60 years. And then they go on to say the children. Phil would not want anyone to waste their money on flowers for his funeral. Instead, he would be tickled pink if you planted flowers in your garden or took you and your family out to a movie, a concert, or a nice meal at a locally owned restaurant. He lived a full and happy life, and we are honored to celebrate the dash between the day he entered this world and the day he left it. We encourage you to do the same.
I feel like one of his daughters must have written that one.
Well, yeah, yeah, for sure.
That's really lovely. And I wonder, he must have been prominent in a small community because that was a long one.
Yeah, it was really, really long. And there's so many things that I love about that. Obviously, the dash between and highlight.
Yes.
I also really love that what he did for a living is like 3 sentences, 4 paragraphs in. Like he was not what he did, obviously. And obviously, this is written from his daughter's perspective. So, there's a much attention is given to the family. But I think that's true in all obituaries. And I think too that it's a good example. So I was looking at it and I was like, okay, here's polished Phil. He's family man. And oh my gosh, can we just say he was asked to join the Olympic team and 3 Major League Baseball teams? Like, okay, is a little Forrest
Right.
Gumpish to me.
Yeah.
That's a lot of opportunity.
Well, I think that, I'm sure it was still a very big deal, but those opportunities, I think, came more frequently when the population was a lot smaller too.
Absolutely. But I was looking at it and I was looking at this polished Phil. And then I thought, did he really want to go to the Olympics? Did he really
Right.
want to play on a baseball team? Because it said he consulted with his parents.
His parents obviously knew that he was perfect because that he was the only one. And
Yeah.
I say that about Macy, the pressure sometimes that we put on our children to
Yeah.
be perfect
Yeah. Yeah.
and live the life that we want them to live rather than helping them choose the right path for themselves is something
Mhm.
that we all do.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple ways to look at it because I thought, okay, we could look at it as though he was very close to his parents and had a loving, supportive peer relationship with his parents. I mean, obviously not the high school Olympic one. He was in high school. But when it comes to the Major League Baseball, this guy was done with college. So we could look at it in terms of these are like his trusted advisors, like he, really values their opinion, or we could look at it as though he does what they
Well, that is a common trait in only children
Mm-hmm.
because only children tend to have a closer relationship with their parents,
Sure.
not because the parents are better parents, but because there are no siblings to connect with.
Right.
And they have other connections. Hopefully most only children do, but the closest relationships are with the parents, typically, not always, but
Right. And you also have to look at the time period. I mean, this is in the 50s.
right.
And so at that time, life looked different. What you were expected to be looked different.
There were not as many outside influences,
Mhm.
even television,
Right. Right.
cable. Of course, the internet was
Yeah.
many years later,
Right. Exactly. And so then the other part that I contemplated was this like polished fill. And I have to say that I have a little bit of a pessimist in me. And I
Mm.
always have.
Uh-oh.
And I was looking on it and I was like, okay, first of all, your wife sounds pushy. And I thought, okay, he married his mom. I mean, I started like telling all these stories about like the characters, quote unquote, in Phil's
Right.
story. But I was looking at this polished, version, and then he has his stroke, and Phil starts being
Right.
real colorful. Phil starts having some opinions, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I dare say that Phil was there the whole time.
I would guess so as well.
So I think it is polished. And then I think that there was an unpolished version, and then I thought, okay, in what ways do I do that? In what arenas do I, live polished, or present as polished versus the arenas where I'm willing to be unpolished,
Right.
you
And
know?
call our children names.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kind of going back to the perfect child.
Hmm.
He obviously was a very loved
Yes. Yes.
father,
Sure.
husband. And I think that was really evident in the writing. And that term perfect can mean, you're human. We get
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but you're just perfect just as you are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we see your perfection.
I think that Phil, his legacy is love. He left a legacy of love. And so then I think about it, and that's what I want my obituary to be. And not necessarily in writing, but metaphorically, I want my legacy to be that. I've got more.
I would love to hear another one.
Okay.
You have one in mind, don't you?
I do. I do. I have one in mind. I actually have two in mind that I wanted to share. And I won't read all of them, but I feel like it's important to do that. I'm not going to say the name of these people. Okay, so this woman was 83 and she was born on April 13th, 1938 in St. Elmo, Illinois. She served in the U.S. Navy as a nurse from February 3rd, 1960 until August 14th, 1963. She was a traveling nurse for many years with assignments taking her to Texas, Pennsylvania, Michigan, California, Alaska, and Montana. She enjoyed watching all sports. She volunteered at Hospice Circle of Love and was a member of First United Methodist Church. Her motto was, I did it my way. And in parentheses is my life. When it says I did it, it's parentheses my life, my way. Can I tell you why I read her?
Yeah, tell us.
That was just a piece. I mean, it wasn't the full deal. But the reason why I read her is because she and I share a name, my first name and my maiden name.
Really?
Yes. And I might have one that has the same name as you, Mary.
Okay.
Would you like to hear a little bit of hers?
Yeah.
Now
Well,
hers
that did not sound like the Lydia that
is
I know,
why
but
not? The traveling nurse part?
or what I was thinking about when you were reading about her was the traveling part. And I was thinking, well, I've been in the same place my whole life, but that is my plan is to move somewhere or do something. And I have traveled, but not I haven't lived in other places really. But that doesn't mean I don't have an interesting life. I just
None.
do it all in the same place mostly.
Yeah. And I mean, I have lived, this is my third state that I've lived in, but um, I certainly haven't traveled as much as I want to. But I mean, I've done a little travel. But what I liked about her is that her motto was, I did it my way. You know,
Yeah.
that I liked. I was like,
Well, I can relate to that motto.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love it too. And what I love too, y'all, and maybe we could post this. It's
That's
got a
fierce.
it's got a picture of her. And I love the picture. I mean, I just adore the picture. It's her in her Navy uniform.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. Well, we'll have to
Maybe post
post Lydia's picture.
And traveling nurse is a great way to actually experience a place because you go and live there and you work, but you have time off. Like years and years ago, I had a condo and I would sublet my extra room. And I had two traveling nurses live with me for months
Mhm.
at a time. And that's what they did. They'd go to these places. So they had, a job, but then they had concentrated time off and they'd go explore in these other places. So they actually, as opposed to going to visit a place, you don't really get to know exactly the inner workings. Like, this is how it works here. Like, this is what we do here.
Well, I do think that travel is so important for growth. I have a conflicting feeling about it because I think it, taxes our environment sometimes unnecessarily, but I think the reward of traveling is we get fresh ideas, we move energy. I mean, we're moving, so energy moves
Mm-hmm.
through us in a different way. And we grow when we're open to seeing other ways of being in the world.
Yes, absolutely. It is so embedded into our DNA that what you do is grow up, get a job, get married, have kids. Like it's
Right.
like this is just what you do. So and I wanted to do life my way. And I often joke and say, it's like I tripped and fell and I'm married and I have two kids. Like, I don't know how that happened. And I would not change it for the world. Oh my gosh, my children make everything worth it. They are amazing. But it is, embedded in us. So I try to be really careful with my boys not to assume things. Like, I don't say, oh, when you grow up and have kids, you'll understand, or when you get married, or, I don't do that. Although there's moments arise and I can see where I would say it, like insert that here, like this is where that phrase would go. And
Mhm.
I consciously don't do it because I really am hoping to, at least from our family's perspective, give them permission to have a blank slate. Like, your future is not in any way predetermined.
Right. Let them write their own obituary, so to speak.
Exactly, exactly. And even when we think we're doing that, we're not, because we really do have this assumption.
The other piece of that is our kids will tell us when we're not, like I sometimes I think I'm parenting in such this wonderful way. And then my daughter's like tells me something from her perspective, and I'm kind of shocked. You never listen to me, or,
Mhm.
mom, you always, she said this the other day. She was like, Mom, you always say what? And then you hear what I say I know what that feels like to not be listened to. And it takes her sort of pointing it out sometimes
Yeah.
for me to be aware and present.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
So do you mean that she'll tell you something and then you say what after? And she
right.
knows that you've heard her, or she feels like you didn't hear her?
I didn't hear her because the other thing that happens is it takes me a second, especially if my mind is somewhere else. So I'll say what, and then it'll register in my brain.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, oh yeah, or, I'll respond. And, our children are so in tune with what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
more so sometimes than we are,
Mm-hmm.
that they will be paying attention to what we're doing when we're not.
Yeah.
And they pointed out to us.
Right. Right.
So,
I always, my son was sick this week, and I was too, really sick, different things. But so it was this experience of having my son sick and me sick at the same time. And typically, obviously, I'm like a nurturer and caregiver to my son, but I was sick. So I couldn't be as present as I typically am. I couldn't do what I normally do. And so I went to him and said, I'm really sorry. I always endeavor to call myself on things before they call me on them.
well, that's a lofty goal.
I
And
know.
sometimes I think sometimes it's helpful to allow that and be open to that. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'd much rather never get called out.
Yeah. I know. Okay. Before we finish, I want to show you your namesake that I found. Or not show you, but read to you a little bit about her and see if you can pick out something that really stood out super clear to me. Mary, and I'm not doing the entire thing, I'm just kind of giving you a piece of it. Her husband, Stan Levin, a former senior producer for Chronicle, said in a statement, Mary never let her Alzheimer's define her or slow her down. She was as real could be, a force in motion, and always gracious, stopping to talk to her fans. Our family came to accept that we share Mary. You can't contain Mary. Richardson joined WCVB in 1980 after stints at a few TV stations out west. She worked as a reporter and anchor, as well as hosting the weekly public affairs program 5 on 5. After 4 years, she moved to the role she'd hold for the next 26 as a co anchor of Chronicle, the channel's nightly news magazine show. For the program, which she anchored alongside Peter Magan and then Anthony Everett, she traveled around New England and across the globe. She also co hosted the annual Holiday at the Pops concert from Boston's Symphony Hall, as well as the popular Pops Goes the Fourth celebration from the Hatch Shell on the banks of the Charles River. Both were broadcast locally and nationally. In 2011, Richardson was inducted into Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame for her decades of accomplishment in the media industry. She, as well as Chronicle, during her time there, received numerous other awards for her work.
Well, obviously the can't container part.
I love that. To me, that saved the entire obituary, because the rest of the obituary is a resume.
Oh, exactly. Well, we had to share her because you you
Yeah,
can't contain her.
that's right. You can't contain Mary. So this obviously was an example of a Mary who lived a very public life, and I don't know if her obituary was read like a resume because her job was her life. But I
Right.
didn't see anything about kids. I didn't see, there wasn't, she leaves behind
Well,
what?
they did say her family and friends,
No, right. Yes, yes, yes.
but
There was,
that was the only mention. Her
yeah.
family and friends knew they couldn't contain her,
I love it.
so they'd
And
have to share her.
just taking a minute to realize and think about the fact that there's going to be a period on the sentence that it's my life. It's coming, a period's coming. And what do I want to create more of in my life before that
Right.
period?
I mean, I honestly feel like I'm doing it. I think that, I mean, you already said one thing that I would agree with is to live with love. And I think the can't contain her part is living free, free of my own worry and anxiety and fear, and living fully every moment that I can. And I'm not really one that believes that you can be free of fear and worry and anxiety every moment of the day. I think there is a time for worry, a time for fear, and a time for even like depression, because those are times for us to slow down. We've had some sickness at my house this week too. And people are like, oh, I hope you feel better, which I really appreciate. And I also know that it's my body's way of saying, hey, slow down
Yeah.
and chill out a little bit. And sometimes when we don't take the time to do that intentionally, we get sick because our body and our spirit, I think, is telling us it's time to stop. Just
Yeah.
give it a rest.
Yes, I totally agree. And that is my experience. When I won't slow down, life has a way of making sure that I do, whether it be I get sick or my kids get sick or, my car battery dies. There's always a sign that says, okay, now it's time, put it down. And then, way on the other end of that spectrum, is travel. Both of our namesakes, they traveled, both of them.
Well, we should travel together.
I know. And I say that, like, I do genuinely want to travel. And then I thought, and what are all the ways in which you sabotage that? When I go down to it, there is a fear of traveling too.
Yeah, because I don't know if y'all know this, but Lydia really also likes to be at home.
Really like to be at home.
Really. Well, I actually love to be at home too. I mean, I don't mind being at home. I love it.
Yeah, me
But
too.
I also love to travel. So
Yeah, you go out into the world, I think, more fearlessly than I do. And I think that, like you said, there are cycles and times, and I am definitely in one of those times where life has gotten smaller. But I recognize that part of that wanting to be at home is very healthy. And it's a great sign. It says that I've created a space in which, I feel loved and comfortable and safe. And it and at the same time, there is a part of that that is fearful.
mhm,
I'm safe here, not out there. And
yeah.
and that's my core, like, Enneagram thing, is that I don't feel safe in the world. Like, it's
Well, I think a lot of people feel that way now. I mean, if not before the last couple of years, I think a lot of people feel
yeah,
fear of going out
I
in the
know,
world.
for so
So
many reasons. And I'm trying not to use that as proof for myself, like, something that bolsters that idea for me. Uh,
well, that's meant as validation. A lot of people feel that way. And, what do I want for myself?
yeah.
And I don't think you have to go across the country to travel, just getting outside and taking a walk and feeling the fresh air.
Yeah. If you look at it in terms of energy, like you were saying there, you are moving energy around just by walking. Walking shifts your own energy. So, yeah, walking. What else do we want to create more of?
Just continuing to create
Mhm.
and to take ownership of my life. And I feel like I've done that more in the last 5 years than I have in my entire life. And choosing every day what I want to create
Yes.
is a big part of how I want to show up.
And the obituaries reminded me to continue, because I think I'm doing it, to continue to create a life that is true to me and true to what I value. Because at the end, at the period, at the end of this sentence, I want a life that I recognize. I want it to be a reflection, a true reflection of me and what I value. I can't remember what teacher said this. I think it actually might have been a TED talk, but I remember they said, okay, what is the most important thing in life? You know, what is the most important thing in life? What do you feel that is? And then, you know, you bring it to your mind. And then you say, and then the person said, now look at your life. How much time do you spend on that thing that you value most? And that will rock you. It will rock you when you ask yourself that question. And that's what I mean when I say a life that reflects what I value. You know, I want to be committed to living what I value every day.
The true and unpolished version.
That's right. And I will say it again, everybody, on my tombstone, what I want is a quote, and it is, she wasn't crazy. She was a goddamn cheetah. You know where that came from? Untamed,
No,
Glennon Doyle. But oh my gosh, that is, I'm not kidding when I say I want that on my tombstone. That is exactly right. And if you guys haven't read it, I'm sure everybody in the whole world's read it. But just even that first introduction part of that book where she sees the cheetah, oh, love it.
I think that the definition of fierce would be a good
Yeah. Oh,
thing
do
for
y'all?
you to put on your tombstone.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you like that a new? It's very quick because we got to wrap up. But I there is a song, and it's totally eluded me, but it's going to come back. Uh, oh yeah, it's California Girls by Katy Perry. And my husband and I were riding back from a date. I think it was New Year's Eve. And we were riding back from a date, and I heard the line, fine, fresh, fierce. And y'all remember, I hope, from the last episode, that my word for this year is fierce, right? So fine is beauty, beautiful, fresh, new, starting again, fierce, showing a heartfelt, powerful intensity. So now I keep saying fine, fresh, fierce. I say it all the time.
That's your mantra for the year.
Yeah, that's my mantra. Fine, fresh, fierce.
I like it.
We got it on lock. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You have been listening to True and Unpolished, the podcast. Let's see what happens next.